So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the alleged toxic culture of sexism within the police. This is from a former police chief. So we're going to be talking about this specific article and talking about a few other examples of the police not doing a really good job. And you can use the argument that, well, these are just anecdotal, but based off this article, it does seem like there is a kind of embedded culture within the police, which seems wrong, to put it lightly, and it does go to show us that it doesn't matter if you have good police officers if the culture within the police department is wrong. What that means is that they will struggle to do the right thing because they have been trained not to do the right thing. So if we actually look at this article here, so a former police chief said she would think very carefully about reporting a crime committed against her because she knows how she would be judged. So Susanna Fish, former chief constable of Nottinghamshire Police, said there was a toxic culture of sexism in certain parts of policing. The police chief's body said, women who came forward would be listening to, but, listening to people is one thing, but actually doing something and believing them is another thing, which I think the police, in some cases, have failed to do. So it comes after the killing of Sarah Everand sparked concerns for women's safety in public. Again, I don't want to talk about the person being accused of this murder because this is an ongoing case, and I think people need to remember that. So during a radio interview, Miss Fish was asked how she felt about reporting a crime as a woman. She said that while reporting a crime against property was not an issue, for a crime against herself, she would struggle for how I would be judged. So she's saying property crime, is not an issue, but if she was a victim of a crime, she would struggle to actually go to the police because she fears how she would be judged about it, which is interesting considering if that is the case, then she would be the victim of a crime. So why would she be worrying about being judged? Which I found quite interesting. Miss Fish said that while some officers would be sensitive, others would not. And it sounds like it's a real luck of the draw here with which police officers you get to actually listen and interview you. I also know in terms of conviction rates and the challenges of going through the criminal justice system as a woman, it's thankless, thanks to conservative cuts to, police, the CPS and legal aid and things like that. It's not a surprise that, there are massive issues with the justice system, as well as having judges sit less days as well, which has caused a massive backlog with court cases. Endless repeated humiliation of telling your story over and over again, worrying whether you're going to be believed, putting yourself through that repeatedly, as well as the shame of what's happened to you. So you can see here that, it's a very vicious kind of system where you're endlessly going to have to go over your story constantly, and you're worried about someone actually believing you, which is the key thing here, because it's easy to listen to people, but are you going to do something about what they've told you, or are you just going to sit there and judge them? She added that victim blaming has become an endemic, which means that it is widespread within the police department. When women have the courage to come, this is another person here, another police constable, Olivia Pinkley, saying when women have the courage to come forward to anyone, including the police, they will be listened to, they will be heard, and they will be supported, which, if we look at some of the examples we're going to look at, we know that this is not the case. I know that happens because I know that we follow up every case. She added, I'm sure we get stuff wrong, but if we get it wrong, then we'll hear about it and we'll fix it. It kind of reminds me of when Nick Clegg sang that I'm Sorry song, which was edited masterfully, where he said, when we're wrong, we hold our hands up too, are you really, if you really thought that when police officers get things wrong, they fix things, then why was Cressida Dick given a promotion when someone was gunned down in London being accused of a terrorist? Why was she not punished for it? Why was that situation not resolved? This is an absolute myth. This person here, Olivia Pinkley, may actually believe what she's saying here, but I don't think it's true. I genuinely don't. And, we'll talk more about specific examples in a minute. This is talking to someone else here. This is to Miss Fisher again, the person the article's really about. She said, asked about what she meant by institutional misogyny in the way the police handled the vigil, Miss Fish told Women's Hour that while there were many good people in policing, it was about a mindset and culture of the institution and how decisions were made. I think there is still significant parts of policing where there's a very toxic culture of sexism, of misogyny that objectifies women. She added, and it's quite interesting that a former police chief would come out and say this. Because she was head of a department by the looks of things. And so, people can say that, well, how misogynistic could they be if a woman is in charge of, the police department she was in charge of, and a woman is in charge of, the Met Police. But we know that it simply doesn't work like that. Just simple representation isn't enough. It's about ideology. It's about changing the culture within the police department. And if we look at these specific examples here, so this was a woman at the vigil who, said that she was a victim of indecent exposure. So if we actually look at Georgina was on her way home from Clapham Common on Saturday when she was confronted by a man exposing himself. She told the BBC she tried to speak to a group of police, but a male officer told her they had enough with the rioters today. The thing is, this wasn't a riot, though, was it? It was a protest. Riots are typically violent, with things being thrown and people, getting into fights and stuff. That's more of a riot. This was a protest. So this police officer is a joke. And if we actually look at here, she told the BBC that she went to a group of about 5 or 6 police officers to ask them if they could address the situation, as she was feeling very uncomfortable. The female police officer said, "Okay, we'll go," and she was about to go when a male colleague said, "We're not dealing with this anymore. We've had enough with the rioters today. We're not dealing with it." So you can see here that that there is an issue with the police, because this person up here was the victim of a crime. And so the police should have done something. This guy is probably gone now. They will never find who this person is because the police decided not to act on this, which shows you that, you could argue that it's just this police officer here, but there was a group of 6 of them. So we know one of them was going to go. So that's one out of the 6 who's going to do something. Then we see the second person, the man, male police officer, didn't want to do anything and stopped anything being done. That's 2 out of 6. So what were the other 4 police officers doing? That's the question. And if they were just standing there saying, "All right, we're not going to do anything," it does show you that there's a culture in the police department of not doing the right thing. In this case, in the Met Police Department, anyways, if 4 of them just stood by and said, "All right, we're not doing anything," then 2 female police officers from the Met have since visited Georgina, and the forcer said it was looking into her report. Good luck finding the geezer. Honestly, you're not going to find him. We are aware of a report that she tried to report the incident at the time. 2 officers in the area. This will be looked at, and this police officer here should be suspended because he was told a crime had happened, he needs to do something, and he said, "We're not going to deal with it." It does show you that there are issues with specific police officers, and potentially if that group of police officers had heard what happened and didn't do anything, it does show you there's a much bigger problem than just one police officer who stopped a female colleague from getting involved. And if we actually look at this thread here from someone called Sally Hughes. Sally Hughes is a columnist, broadcaster, and an events host. She put out a thread talking about one of her friend's situations where her friend was in a relationship with someone who was abusive, and the police did very little about it. You talk about how the boyfriend broke into her friend's house in the middle of the night, frightened her children, pushed her down the stairs. She left him several times, but he managed to work his way back in. One of those manipulative characters. One day last year, he stole her phone again. Angry at the accusation, he threw her on the floor and kicked her repeatedly. Unbelievably, a woman walked past the open curtain, saw, and dialed 999. So they managed to arrest this person, but this is where it gets very dodgy, especially with the police department who had to deal with this. It doesn't say which police department this was, but it does show you that there are clear problems. It turns out he had a criminal record for multiple offences against women. They took photos of her friend's injuries. She got in touch with his ex-girlfriends, persuaded them to come forward. So this person here was doing the job of the police department. They all had the same story. So then here's what happened. Nothing. The police didn't send the photos of the CPS. Like, what? Like, this is basic. Like, you went there, you took the photos, you didn't send them. Why? I don't understand. For an ABH charge, which is egregious bodily harm or something like that. They now say in writing they forgot and we are sorry, but that my friend needs to move on. I mean, she should probably sue this police department over this, honestly, because this is negligence. And if it's in writing, She could probably get them done for this. Her friend needs to move on. Like, this guy could easily come back and kill her. We've seen cases like that with abusive ex-boyfriends and husbands where, when the police don't do anything, they disappear for a while and they come back, and they kill the victim. This is it's just embarrassing. Her friend needs to move on. They will act on nothing because assault has just 6 months to be charged. Like, what? Like, why? Did you know this? I didn't, and you can help. There's a petition here. You can sign it if you want. I typically don't believe in petitions, but that's up to you. If you want to sign it, I'll link it below. But what can we gather from this? That according to a former police chief, there is a problem with endemic misogyny and kind of judgmentalism, if that's a word, within police departments. All right, and what we have further seen is that when police were told a crime was happening to a woman where she was a victim allegedly of indecent exposure, the police did nothing. The police did nothing. In fact, the police went as far as actively, one male police officer went as far as actively stopping his female colleague from getting involved. That's how bad it is. It's worse than doing nothing, because he was like, no, we're not going to do anything. He stopped something. He essentially helped a criminal get away with a crime. And then we see here through this thread that the police didn't do their job properly. And we can make arguments that, the police have had, budget cuts and maybe they were stressed, etc. All they had to do was send some pictures to the CPS. It was not very hard. You put a name, you put address details, and you hit upload on the photos. Like, who was in charge of this? Which police department is stupid enough to make these mistakes? I don't know. But I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.